the quietest heart in Chicago. The wind on Clark Street carried the smell of roasted peanuts and exhaust fumes, a mix that usually signaled ordinary afternoons in downtown Chicago. But that day was different. Franklin Pierce Hayes didn't hear the usual rhythms of the city. Instead, he heard the low, rhythmic whir of his son's wheelchair gliding over uneven concrete. It was a haunting sound that replaced what used to be the joyful shuffle of sneakers and laughter bouncing between buildings. He'd walked that alleyway 100 times before, but today it might as well have been another world. His 10-year-old son, Owen, was wrapped tightly in a worn Chicago Cubs blanket, his arms folded, his sandy hair tousled like a page left unturned. He stared at the ground, focused on cracks in the sidewalk like they were secrets to a better life. He hadn't stood on his own in over 18 months. Franklin, once hailed as the man who flipped Chicago by Forbes for transforming abandoned buildings into billion-dollar developments, stood like a giant who no longer knew what to do with his hands. The architects, investors, the skyline he practically redrew. None of it could restore the nerves severed in Owen's lower spine after the skiing accident in Vail. The doctors had been gentle but final. A T6 vertebral fracture, resulting in irreversible spinal cord damage. Their words echoed in Franklin's mind every time he closed his eyes. Permanent. No sensation below the waist. Adjustments to quality of life. Hope had once driven him, but now it mocked him with its silence. And then, from the shadow of a dented blue recycling bin, came a voice that did not belong. "Sir," the voice said softly, "I know how to make your son walk again." Franklin turned, expecting some opportunist, perhaps a street magician or peddler with essential oils claiming to heal. But it was a little girl who stepped into the light. She couldn't have been older than 8. She had rich brown skin, oversized brown eyes that didn't match her age, and wore a faded hoodie with the elbows torn open. Her jeans were dirty, her sneakers patched with silver duct tape, but her posture was regal. She didn't look scared or shy, just certain. Franklin's grip on the wheelchair handles tightened. "Excuse me. I said I can help your son," she repeated, stepping closer. "My name's Amira. I live at the church shelter on Wells. I saw you both yesterday." He looked sad. Owen turned his head, looking at her not with suspicion or annoyance, but with a flicker of curiosity Franklin hadn't seen in months. That small glance startled him more than the girl's words. "You've been watching us?" Franklin asked, his tone more cautious than accusatory. "Not like a creep or anything," she said quickly, shifting her weight. I'm usually on that corner. Most people walk by, but you stopped yesterday. You dropped the glove, and you picked it up. You didn't just ignore it. That's rare." Franklin looked down at Owen, still watching her. "My son's condition isn't about sadness," he said. "It's medical, neurological. His spine is." "Sleeping," Amira interrupted, her voice quiet. "Not broken. That's what my grandma used to say. Sometimes the body stops not because it's hurt, but because the heart is." Franklin was about to scoff when Owen looked up at him and, in a voice barely louder than a breath, said, "Maybe we could just see?" Franklin froze. Owen hadn't asked for anything in months. No cartoons, no ice cream, not even bedtime stories. And now he was asking to follow a barefoot girl from an alley. Franklin swallowed hard and exhaled. "If anything feels wrong," he said quietly, bending to Owen's eye level, "we leave. Deal?" Owen nodded. It wasn't quite a smile on his lips, but it was closer than anything Franklin had seen since the accident. "Follow me," Amira said, already walking. They turned off the avenue and into the deeper folds of the city streets where storefronts were shuttered, where the smell of yesterday's rain clung to rusting fences. Franklin hesitated often, wheeling Owen over cracked sidewalks and beneath sagging fire escapes. Every instinct told him to turn back. But something in Amira's step calm, unwavering, kept him moving. They finally stopped behind a forgotten brownstone. Vines crawled over its crumbling face. A door, half covered in graffiti and shadowed ivy, creaked open without anyone knocking. Inside, light leaked through holes in the ceiling. The air smelled of lemon balm and dust. A worn rug sprawled across the wood floor like a prayer in fabric form. And seated on it, cross-legged and serene, was an old woman. Her silver hair was bundle high, her dark skin mapped with the kind of age that made you listen before she even spoke. "I was wondering when you'd bring him," the woman said to Amira, without opening her eyes. Franklin stiffened. "How did you?" "I don't know the future," she said, now opening her eyes and smiling gently. "But I know pain, and I know when it walks through my door." Owen leaned forward, eyes wide. "Who are you?" "Just someone who listens," she replied. "May I touch your knees?" Franklin hesitated, but Owen looked at him, hopeful. He nodded. The woman placed her hands gently on the boy's knees. Her fingers were weathered but warm. Her eyes closed. She began to hum an old, wordless tune that made Franklin think of lullabies sung on porches during long summer nights. Owen jerked slightly. "I felt something," he whispered. Like a current, but soft." Franklin leaned in. "What do you mean, felt?" The woman opened her eyes. "His body remembers. More than he thinks." "That's not science," Franklin said automatically. "No," she agreed, "it's not. But science doesn't sit with a boy when he thinks he's invisible." She turned back to Owen. "Do you want to try?" Owen hesitated, then nodded. Carefully, the woman helped him to his feet. His legs shook violently. Franklin moved forward, panicked, but the woman stopped him with a hand. One foot, then the other. He was standing. He was standing. Franklin dropped to his knees, tears already streaming down his face. "Owen! Oh God, Owen!" Owen's arms trembled, his legs like reeds in a storm. But he was upright. He looked at his father and gave him the first grin in 18 months. Then he took a step, just a small one. A shuffle, really. Then another. And then his knees gave way. Franklin caught him, wrapping him up, sobbing into his neck as Owen whispered, "I felt it, Dad. I really did." Amira stood nearby, hands tucked into her sleeves. The old woman folded her arms peacefully. Franklin looked at her. "I need to understand what just happened." "There's not much to understand," she said. "When the soul starts to believe again, the body follows. That's not how healing works, isn't it?" she asked softly. He had no reply. He turned to Amira. "Who are you?" "Just a girl who listens to stories," she said. "My grandma raised me when no one else would. She always said people don't need fixing. They just need to remember they're not broken." She stepped beside Owen. "I was born with a bent foot." Kids laughed. Grown-ups stared. Grandma sat me down on this rug, touched my ankle, hummed that same song. She didn't promise anything. Just asked me to try. And I did. And it worked. Owen asked. "I never limped again," she said simply. "Where is she now?" Franklin asked. "Gone. Almost a year. Stroke." Her voice cracked. It was the first sign of her grief. "They put me in foster care after that. I ran. No one believed her stories. Said she was a fraud. That I made it all up." "So you live out here?" Franklin asked, the question gentle. "Church shelter most nights. Sometimes the back of the bakery on Southport." "That's not right," he said. "You're just a child." "A lot of us are," she replied. "But the world forgets us unless we make them remember." Franklin looked at his son alive in a way he hadn't been since before the accident. "I want to help you," Franklin said to her. "I can get you off the street. Safe. Educated." She shook her head. "This is where I'm needed. On corners no one looks at. Among people who think hope is for someone else. That's where healing begins." He felt the truth in her words like a weight on his chest. Still, he handed her a card. "If you ever change your mind or need anything, that number works 24/7. She took it, studied it like it held a secret, and slipped it into her pocket. Owen reached for her hand. "Will I see you again?" he asked. "If you ever forget how to believe," she said, "I'll probably be close." That night, Franklin sat at Owen's bedside. Outside, Chicago glowed like a promise. "I don't know how to explain it," he whispered, "but I'll never forget it." Elsewhere, Amira sat beside a 6-year-old who hadn't spoken since her mom left 3 months ago. She didn't ask questions. She just held her hand and hummed. Because healing, she knew, didn't begin with explanations. It began with being seen.